Leo Varadkar, Ireland's Prime Minister, called Julian Smith one of Britain's finest politicians of our time, but on Thursday Boris Johnson dismissed him from his post as Northern Ireland's Secretary. Only last month Mr. Smith was being garlanded as «Minister of the Year» by The Spectator magazine for his role in bringing the Stormont Assembly in Belfast back to life after 3 years in the deep freeze. But his sacking revealed the depth of animosity felt by the Prime Minister towards Mr. Smith, a pro-Remain survivor from the Theresa May era. Mr. Smith, Chief Whip under Mrs. May, was somewhat surprised to survive Mr. Johnson's first reshuffle last July but threw himself into his role in Northern Ireland, whose future was bound up with Brexit. During the autumn Mr. Smith clashed with Mr. Johnson over the Prime Minister's threat to leave the EU without a deal, an outcome which he warned would be highly disruptive and require London to impose direct rule on the region. Mr. Johnson's eventual Brexit deal, which imposed a new border in the Irish Sea, further inflamed tensions, but relations improved after the December election as Mr. Smith worked around the clock to restore Stormont. Mr. Varadkar hailed Mr. Smith's role in delivering reforms to allow same-sex marriages in Northern Ireland. The minister proudly proclaimed the first such unions could take place by Valentine's Day 2020. Tory aides had predicted the Prime Minister would fire Mr. Smith because he had been blindsided by an element of the Stormont deal that would create a new body to consider murders carried out in the Troubles. The suggestion was that the agreement would cut across the Conservative manifesto pledge to end vexatious cases against former British servicemen who had served in the region. But Mr. Smith's allies said that all ministers, and Downing Street, were given a written presentation on the plans before they were agreed, and it was absolutely not true that Mr. Johnson was unaware of the deal he was negotiating in Belfast. Allies of the Prime Minister suggested on Thursday that Mr. Smith was sacked due to personal clashes with Mr. Johnson over the government's approach to Brexit. Julian was totally undermining our strategy at the most crucial time, telling everyone that no deal would be very bad for Northern Ireland at the exact moment we had to keep it on the table, said one minister. I don't think Boris ever really trusted him or forgave him for going against government policy in October. One insider in the Conservative Party whip's office said, as a former chief, Julian was aware of everything we were doing to try and get the Brexit deal through. I don't think he approved of Downing Street's more aggressive methods to win around MPs. Mr. Smith appeared to take his sacking in stride. Serving the people of Northern Ireland has been the biggest privilege, he tweeted. I am extremely grateful to Boris Johnson for giving me the chance to serve this amazing part of our country. The warmth and support from people across NI has been incredible. Thank you so much.